someone has asked me before, was there ever a point where you didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel? And I said, yeah, there were periods like that, but then you just keep plodding along and moving forward and not saying we can't do this. And I think the key too that really helped me is that partners and customers would help me understand what they needed, what their clients needed and so forth, so that we could then pivot to the right services. I really now more rely on the clients helping me and providing guidance to the services and requirements that they have.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Incident Report presented by Quest Technology Management. I'm Paul Burke, Director of Technology Communications. Every week, I'm joined by VP of Sales and Partnerships, Adam Burke. The Incident Report brings you conversations with thought leaders, business innovators, and channel mavericks to help you stay productive and agile in a changing technology landscape. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Incident Report. It is episode 50. Trumpets. It's very exciting. We're here. I don't do this alone. Adam Burke sitting across from me. Adam, how are you doing? How do you feel? Episode 50. We've been doing this for over a year.
Episode 50, Paul. Been doing it for over a year. Very excited about it. It's a great day to be alive, as always. Excited to be here.
Nice. And listen, we wanted something to celebrate this half centennial event. And it's been a while since we sat down with Tim Burke. And we're excited to get him back. I was looking at our history, and the last time we sat down with Tim Burke was November 20th, 2020 for our old show, Adam, Spilling the IT. So really excited to have him back. If you don't know Tim Burke, let me educate you. Tim Burke, Quest President and Chief Executive Officer. He's grown Quest from a small 3-person computer media supply firm to a worldwide leader in technology management. He has continued his commitment to provide unparalleled customer service with a focus on quality and flexibility for 40 years. That's some good marketing PR right there.
Good marketing speak there, Paul. Nice intro. Fantastic intro.
Thank you very much. I did that by myself. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Tim Burke.
Hi, Paul. Hi, Adam. Good to be on the show today. Looking forward to it.
Okay, a little behind the scenes right now. I can see Adam laughing at me for saying give it up for Tim Burke. I realize that might be a little aggressive, but I'm excited to have him on. Thanks for joining us on the Incident Report, Tim. How's everything going?
Doing great. Doing really good. Just a lot of exciting things going on. A lot of industry always growing. People need help. We're always looking forward to helping. And we certainly have a lot of opportunities in the marketplace that working with partners and working with a lot of our clients and partners that is very much, hopefully we continue to grow in the next 40 years. That seems daunting, but thanks for having me today.
Thanks for joining us. Think of this as inside the actor's studio. This is like inside the channel studio. For those who don't know the Quest origin story, this is like a Marvel origin story. How did Quest get started? And also, why did Quest get started? Why did you choose this technology space to supply as a media supply firm?
That's a great question with some background. So I was in the computer area early in my career, graduated from college, went directly into what was referred to at that point in time as the mainframe business. As part of that business, worked for a company that did not sell computer supplies and accessories really to its customers. So we, my wife and I, Cindy, put together a company that sold supplies in full knowledge of the folks that I worked for at the time, because we had customers who needed things and we supplied them. The reason I got into this business per se is that my first venue of business was an absolute disaster. And I had decided I was going to package firewood. So I started a company and started buying cords of firewood, oak wood, only the best oak firewood that money could buy, but found out that I knew absolutely nothing about the firewood business. I had customers to buy my wood that I didn't have, and was completely decimated with the failure of that business. And there's very sage advice from my wife, who said to me, maybe we should try something that you know something about. And so that's where I got into the technology space And then as the industry evolved over the last many years, believe it or not, and this for many of the partners on the call, people really wanted to talk to you about round reel tape and disc packs and print wheels and diskettes. I mean, I know that seems like really people really wanted to talk to you about that, but yeah, they did. They had needs, they had pain, and we would talk to them about what their needs were. And so that same theme of working with customers based on what their needs were hasn't changed. Certainly the technology have changed. So over the last many years, we've evolved with the technology industry, moving into first after PCs. Not that we abandoned any one product. We went into doing PCs, then we went into networks, then we acquired cabling organizations and infrastructure services organization. Then we went into application development, professional services, and managed services. So we have evolved with the industry primarily as a result of needs that our customers asked us to fulfill. So it wasn't that I would have these thoughts about, well, this is where we should go and this is the direction we should take this business. It was our customers and our partners asking us to help them in certain areas. And so we've been able to grow the business now to the size it is, really listening to our partners and to our customers and taking it in the direction they felt the market was in.
I have so many questions, and I think it's such an interesting story. When you started with firewood, not to dwell on failure, but I'm really curious, why did you get into firewood? What was that? Because I think we all have ideas, and I'd just love to know, like, why did you think that was the thing you wanted to start with?
Yeah, great question. I had bought a cord of firewood. I don't remember for the house. And it was a cord of firewood. At the time, it was like $50 or $60. And I went to the grocery store and I saw a box of firewood that was like, I don't know, $7 for a box of $6 or $7 for a box of firewood. And I started calculating arithmetically, well, how many cords of firewood that you could get, how many boxes could you get out of a cord? And the numbers were just astronomical. They were, wow, I could take that $70 cord of firewood and by boxing it, make it into a $500 profit by taking that wood and boxing it and selling it to the grocery store. So that was the original thought. The only challenge is I didn't have grocery stores who wanted to buy it from me. I didn't really have the firewood. I didn't even have the boxes. A lot of the major parts there, I had to, try to pull together, and it just didn't work out. There were a lot of pieces and parts that I really hadn't thought through about how to get that cord of firewood, let alone where do I get the cord of firewood? I'm not a guy that goes out and cuts trees down and splits wood. Same time, how do I now get that boxed into the stores and contracts for the stores to buy the boxes, and all the intricacies of boxes of firewood were well beyond my understanding.
I'm curious, I hope you don't mind me asking, when you started Quest, were there moments in the first couple years that you thought this isn't going to work either, that you thought maybe this is going to be a failure? And if you did have that, how did you work through that? Because I think a lot of people getting businesses started, people in the channel who are just getting their feet underneath them might have those moments as well.
Yeah, definitely had those moments. I would say probably for the first 10 to 15 years, wasn't just a couple of years. It was a long period of time to really try to understand the ins and outs of the business, to really understand. Yeah, I had a agricultural economics degree. I'd taken some business classes, but I didn't really understand the ideas of the ins and outs of business and accounting and all the things that make up the ideas of, I buy a product, I resell it to somebody. That wasn't the difficult part, but now I got to go collect the money. Now I have to go have money available to buy more product before I've gotten collected on the product I've already sold. All those intricacies of selling and buying products and owning any business were just not something that I had a lot of firsthand experience on.
Mhm.
And it was definitely a challenge. And there were certainly many, many, many times that I remember a story when I had my family in the car. We were going to the state fair, and I had my whole family in the car. And from a financial standpoint, you're having to stop at an ATM machine to get some money to go to the fair. And many businesses were into this, that the ATM machine wouldn't give me any money. And so that was a real, holy cow, what am I doing? And one of those moments that was tough, and actually had to stop by my parents' house and sneak in, get $40 so I could take the family to the fair. There's definitely those moments in I think any business owner circumstances that a lot of people may not understand, because it isn't all, not everybody, it's not all Bill Gates stories. So let's put it that way. So
I think one of your strengths, Tim, is knowing when to, and this is such a buzzword, when to pivot, when to change, and when to be like, this isn't working, let's try something else. But also sticking with certain plans. And when you are borrowing money to take the kids and family to the state fair, what kept you going and thinking this is going to work?
I think it's a lot of times it's more a hope that it's going to work. You believe it's going to work. You're building the customers. You're servicing customers well. Customers are wanting to engage with you. Those are all the positive things that in any organization you enjoy. And then I think it's just plodding along, trying to get to the end of the tunnel. Someone has asked me before, was there ever a point where you didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak? And I said, yeah, there were periods like that, but then you just keep plodding along and moving forward, and not saying we can't do this. And I think the key too that really helped me is that partners and customers would help me understand what they needed, what their clients needed, what the clients needed, and so forth, so that we could then pivot to the right services. Interesting. I comment this to a lot of folks, is that when people come into my office or into our building now and are pitching some new technology and we have to get involved with, and we have to jump on that bandwagon, I really go to my clients and ask them where they think the market's going and what do they really think about what this situation is. Because when I've tried to say, I'm going to stand this service up or this capability, and all you clients and partners certainly want to buy this from us, that really hasn't necessarily worked out. I really now more rely on the clients helping me with and providing guidance to the services and requirements that they have.
You're not pretending to be the smartest person in the room, but you are going to be the best listener in the room in those conversations.
Yeah, I'm going to try to really listen to what the clients are asking for. And sometimes that gets us into problems. And whether it be in the partner community or the end user community, because people have been just conditioned to get pitched at. Come in with your offering, and in the technology field, you always hear this idea of scale, scale, scale. Create something and then go pitch it, and pitch it and pitch it and pitch it. And certain people will buy it and certain people won't. And that's really how you grow your business in the technology space. And that's just not work for us. And it may work for others, and probably has, but it hasn't worked for us, where we really go in and sit down with a client and a partner and understand what is the client trying to do, and what do they see as the outcome, and how do they see themselves benefiting. And a lot of clients are taken back by that, almost to the negative. Some partners really were. It's like, okay, here, flip a switch and give us your pitch, bring out your PowerPoint, make the little boxes move around the slide. Vendors come in and they understand that a lot of clients have been conditioned to get these pitches and these stories. And a lot of people in the marketplace that's what they do. And it's not work for us. We go in and really try to understand from a client, what are you trying to accomplish and how can we help you with that? And if we can, great. And if we can't, you've already got it figured out, or you want to do something different than maybe what our capabilities are, that's okay too. But we really want to listen to where the client wants to be versus what our pitch is.
You think that all goes back to, it's funny, kind of a little bit of the origin story there. I wonder if that all goes back to the idea of you did some arithmetic and worked out a plan in your head as far as a cord of wood versus a box and all the margin available there. But kind of like when people come in your office, and I've seen them do this for years, and you politely redirect them when they come to a simple kind of arithmetic model for you. It's about how much money you can make in a certain technology or something like that. But back to the firewood example of you didn't know how to split wood. You didn't have any supermarkets that wanted to buy the boxes of wood from you. And candidly, you didn't have any boxes. So when people come and pitch these ideas or you hear these stories, it's like, well, that's a great idea. Why don't you go put together a plan exactly how that's going to happen? And then we'll talk. And usually they never come back in your office after that.
Yeah, and I hadn't thought of it that way, that it could go back to the firewood story and it, but it very well could. Because actually, I will have to back up a minute. My first business transaction of huge success was my lawn cutting business as a high school, junior high and high school kid, where I went up and down my grandparents' street. And some people had asked me, I cut their lawn, and some other people on the street asked me to cut their lawn. And then they would ask me can you help me pull the weeds? Can you help me rake the leaves? Can you help me edge the lawn? And the clients on that street were asking me what they needed done and how they needed help. And that's what I was able to do, listening to them. And for this house, I would just cut the lawn and edge it. And this house wanted me to do the weeds and also rake the leaves and so forth. So that was actually where I think I learned the technique of listening to clients and understanding what they want. And the wood example is, no, I thought of the wood. I thought it was a good idea. The world should think it's a good idea. And I'm going to go make all this money selling wood, and you're going to buy it from me. And it was like the world told me, no, we're not. That's not the way. That's not going to happen. So I kind of reverted back to the idea of, let me walk down my grandparents' street again and asking people how I can help them. That's historically worked well for me.
The world said, no, this approach, ditch it. The one you did as a kid, that's the one that works the best.
Exactly. Yeah.
Quest has had great growth in the channel. How do you think the listening approach, the hearing what's needed, has helped, or if it has helped, the channel growth for Quest?
In the channel, I mean, the channel is really a part of the overall tech business community. So again, there's folks in the tech business community who want you to come in and do a pitch and put up the PowerPoints and convince people why you're better. No different than the rest of the tech community. And there's others who appreciate the idea that we're going to listen and try to understand it. And again, part of some of those people also really don't like that. So it is a bit of a mixed bag in that sense. I think a lot of the partner community have grown to appreciate our flexibility, where groups will recognize, well, this is more involved situation than someone just buying X and we're looking for the best price for X. It's more of like, well, there's X and Y and Z and D and F in here, and all these things have to work together. It's more of a complex, involved area. So for instance, in the cybersecurity space, very involved. You just don't buy a point product and think, okay, I've got my world secured, as an example. A lot of things touch each other. So listening and understanding where the client is and what the client's trying to accomplish is huge and has really benefited us. And I think my perception in the channel is that people appreciate that part of how we come to market and work with them and their clients.
Yeah, and so we've had with the channel, it's a learning experience with a lot of partners. It takes a few conversations with them to understand a little bit about how we like to understand the client's needs and then put together, our building blocks approach. I was on a call earlier this morning, working through an SD-WAN, a security engagement with a partner. And it was funny, their client had been at that account for 10 years and they were going through some trouble. And the client was frustrated because 3 years ago, they got pitched on an SD-WAN solution and a security solution, and they had an impact to their headquarters. They lost connectivity, and they wanted to rip and replace it. And what we were talking through with the client and with the partner was, hey, how have you made these selections in the past, right? How you've been here for 10 years, you built this network, you built this infrastructure, you've built what you've built. You got to be careful how you approach this, but you kind of have to have the candid conversation if you want to get there. How have you made this decision in the past? And he walked through how they made the decision. How are you making that decision now? Well, he was going through the exact same process he did last time. And the partner did a great job of, because they understood our model, of saying, hey, you've gone through the RFP, the shiny presentation, all the deliverable kind of conversation in the past. What if you took a design approach first? What if you helped bring in some people who've been in this type of a world before, and you went through an actual design, as opposed to listening to 5 different sales reps tell you why their PowerPoint and their solution is better than another, and then they disappear in a year, right? It takes a while to get there, and some clients are on board with it, and some aren't quite there yet. A big part of, I think, we started the program in 2010, 13 years later, you stay in the game, you stay in contact, and people reach out when they need help and they're ready to have that conversation. It's been a lot of fun to see partners reach out when they're ready to have that conversation.
There's so much private equity money coming in, buying up firms, a lot of mergers, a lot of acquisitions. How is that changing the channel? How is that changing IT needs and developments?
Well, the interesting about private equity, and as it relates to there's different kinds of businesses. We talked about it earlier. There's the business of, hey, we're going to come in, we're going to define a product, we're going to scale it, we're going to go pitch it, and who wants to buy our product? So that's a business. It's a valid, functioning way a lot of the market goes about doing technology business. We have our model. We're trying to sit down and listen and understand what they're trying to do, and then come up with various solutions and help with the client and deploy it. And then there's another kind of business, and it is a legitimate business, and it is a different business that's referred to as private equity. Now, private equity is showing up in the channel. It's certainly been around the technology space for quite some time. So those of us who have had businesses of the first variety or the second variety, we're going to build something out and scale it and sell it, or we're going to create a solution offering and work with clients on how they want to. That's certainly, but then when you get into private equity, what I didn't understand about private equity, is we participated in it in private equity as well. What I didn't understand about private equity is it is a business of itself. And it's very important for all of us, I think, to really understand that, not be critical of it, but just understand it in the sense that it is a separate business. It isn't a business necessarily about technology. It's not a business about selling product. It is a business of increasing value for companies. And how can I take a company that's valued for X and in 5 or 6 years make it valued at X times 3 and then sell it, and the cost that it took me to get to X times 3 less X times 3 is really the business I'm in. Now, I don't know if that makes sense, but people really have to understand that if at all you're involved with private equity. Now, in the technology space, you'll see a lot of companies in the space acquiring technology companies. So whether it's Veeam or VMware or a lot of people, private equity is certainly there. In the reseller channel, they're acquiring private equity. Private equity is playing there. And in the last couple of years, private equity has really come down into the partner world as well. So it is, in all 3 worlds, the holy grail of private equity. Just again, it's a business. So what's the holy grail of private equity? That holy grail is reoccurring revenue streams. So where do I have a reoccurring revenue stream? If it has a reoccurring revenue stream, now why it's the holy grail of private equity, I really can't answer. But believe me, it is the holy grail. And we just all have to understand that. Maybe in my business or a lot of our partners' business, the holy grail is really satisfied customers who continue to buy from me. And that's part of what the private equity people need to make sure happens, but that's not the business they're in. The business they're in is really to take a company, bring it together potentially with other companies in some thesis. You'll hear this term a lot in the private equity world of a thesis, so that at the end of 4 to 7 years, 4 to 10 years of the outside, you have something now worth 3x of what you originally started with. And that in of itself is the business. What that business does doesn't necessarily always matter. Doctors' offices are being bought up for private equity, veterinarian offices, channel people because they have residuals and reoccurring revenue commissions on contracts. A lot of people are being bought in the middle market, which a lot of us live, by private equity as well as the bigger players. It is changing the greatly the dynamics of business and business practices that go on. And again, not right or wrong, it just is there and it's growing very, very rapidly.
If you can get into specifics, like how does it change business practices in terms of like for channel partners approaching an organization that has private equity money? Like, how do you notice the changes in that business?
Well, as an example, in our business, in terms of dealing with what we call vendors, manufacturers or vendors, if private equity has typically come into the picture and acquired the company or the original founders or so forth, the founders may have had a specific goal in mind of what they were positioning and how you worked with them was around a certain way. Now, with private equity coming in, and if you don't understand what private equity's goals are, you might become very frustrated with that vendor now because they're majority owned by private equity. And they're potentially bringing different cultures together as they grow their company in private equity. They'll bring 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different organizations together. And those organizations may have very, very different cultures. So clients get confused about the culture that they're really dealing with. They really like the culture maybe that they had been dealing with. And now there's another organization that's involved because the private equity company has brought them in. And it's just a different culture, how they approach customers, how they go to market, how they do software development. We notice as an example with a lot of the software companies that private equity have acquired, and they've acquired numerous of those. Quality control is not as stringent as it had been previously, because again, the private equity folks are very focused on the financial aspect of businesses. You know, they've got these powered spreadsheets that they look at every little thing. And maybe we don't need to do the same level of quality control. Not that they're not going to do good quality control, but maybe not the same level that the original group founders felt was necessary. And so when something gets released, we've noticed a significant number of more bugs in the software and so forth as it relates to ownership by private equity. That would just be one example. But the other example, as I mentioned, is culture. There's just different cultures. There was one company in the channel that private equity brought together 2 separate cultures, and it just blew up into a huge war. And if you were a partner or somebody associated with that group, it wasn't pleasant. So you just really have to understand and know everybody's doing things and they're doing them different. And you just have to understand how that could affect you.
Yeah, and one other thing that we're noticing with private equity and this type of shift is how people recognize revenue. So we're seeing annual contract value, total contract value. Even some of our suppliers and vendors are reaching out and proactively kind of saying like, hey, you know, we need to kind of pull some revenue recognition forward. You guys have multi-year contracts. Would you like to do some prepayments and things like that? It's always interesting to see, you know, how people are wanting to recognize that revenue and how people value the company, and they're making some shifts between purchasing month to month versus payments up front versus multi-year commitments.
And any changes you see coming, is it just going to be more of this, or do you see any shifts happening in the near future?
Well, as interest rates have gone up, what they call the multiples. So you have this in this whole private equity world, you have something called EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, EBITDA, which is the buzzword part of the So the holy grail is reoccurring revenue, and then the EBITDA that reoccurring revenue generates, and then the multiple of that is the value of companies that the private equity people talk about. And because of interest rates, there's a pretty direct correlation between a rising interest rates and a decrease in multiple. That is shifting. It's causing some people to kind of pause and try to rethink whether or not it makes sense to go down this road because of those multiple changes, because of interest rates increases. So you always wonder, well, how do interest rates affect our businesses? And that's a direct relationship between interest rates and the multiple value of someone's business. So that we're seeing that. One question someone asked me recently was, well, you mentioned the holy grail of private equity's reoccurring revenue. Will that always be the holy grail? And I thought that was a great question. I don't know. I know it is right now, but as we've all known in technology, and it changes. So for instance, our model, which is different, we certainly have reoccurring revenue, but we have our business model is we have multiple revenue flow from various offerings that come from our infrastructure services team, our professional services team, our managed services, our cybersecurity teams. So we have multiple flows of revenue coming from multiple sources in helping clients. So again, I'm walking down the street, I'm talking to a neighbor, and this neighbor, my grandparents want me to have weeding, and they want their lawn cut and their lawn edged. Okay, those are the three revenue sources that I have in my lawn cutting business as a kid. And that is more of our model versus everything focused exclusively on reoccurring revenue. So I candidly have a suspicion of you can become very sticky with your client the more services that you can engage them with. If you're a partner, and what I've been engaged in, and most partners are very smart and understand this. I've been doing circuits with them as an example, and now if I can do circuits and I can help them with cyber, and I can help them with managed services, and I can help them with app development and professional services by bringing someone like Quest in, then I believe you become that much stickier and that much more of value. And I think it impacts your value as a company. I am seeing signs that we are heading, and not to sell my own story here, but I am seeing that, where the idea of, well, yeah, you have a reoccurring revenue stream, but it's pretty singular. It's coming from one source. That's all. If you can diversify that across multiple sources, you become that much more valuable to your client. And I think that's important.
Oh, that's interesting. I can't wait to see what happens and see if that develops the way you're seeing it.
This has been a great conversation. I think a lot of our partners and clients and everyone is going to appreciate kind of all the insights and backstory. And this has been great. Awesome 50th, Paul. Awesome 50th. Well done, Paul.
Adam, thank you, sir. It has been a great 50th. And Tim, thank you so much for coming in and just sharing all your insight. It's been fantastic.
Thank you all. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Adam. And happy 50th.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great week. Thanks so much for listening. The Incident Report is brought to you by Quest Technology Management. With over 40 years of experience, Quest is a leading technology integrator working seamlessly with your staff and systems to achieve your IT goals. Learn more about everything they do at questsys.com. And if you have questions or suggestions for the podcast, you can always email Adam and myself at theincidentreport@questsys.com. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time.